All right. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us tonight for our next book stream as part of our book club. It's good. It's good. We do this every month. We try and do it on Thursdays or Fridays, depending on what the week looks like. But this month we are reading this book called Surprise the World, and it is all about the gospel and how we can impact others through it. And so it's really been good. It's pretty simple. It's a really easy read. You can read a chapter in about 15, 20 minutes max. So it's really good. It's a lot of fun. So we're going to bring in the guys, Corey and Brandon, tonight to talk through the next chapters 3 and 4. So last week we talked about how the goal is to live these questionable lives. And then as a part of living a questionable life, the whole idea is not that people wonder who we are, what we're doing, but that it's actually that people question, well, why do you live the way that you do? Why do you act the way that you do? Why do you do the things that you do? And at that point, we can then have opportunities to share the gospel. And so that was a lot of what we talked about last week to kind of set up what we're starting this week, which are the 5 different habits that Michael Frost, the author, talks about as ways that we can have the most impact on others. And so tonight we're going to talk about the habits of bless and the habits of eat, which can be interesting. It's going to be good. So let's bring in the guys where we can kind of talk about it. You'll see the blank one. Maybe again, what happens if I delete this? Oh yeah, Corey right there, front and center. All right. So we got the guys here. So we talked about, now Corey, you didn't get a chance to talk last week because you had some family in town that's about the idea of living a questionable life. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you, maybe even as you watched Brandon and I talking, that how did that kind of sit, this idea that we should live a life that is causes people to wonder why we're different?
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense. It's doing it with the right heart or the right intention. I think it's not just doing it just because, well, God says I need to do it, so I guess I'm going to do it. It's, being a Christian is all about your works and your actions and everything kind of flow naturally because that's who you are as a Christian. You're filled with Christ. And one thing that stood out last week, and I know I talked to y'all about it, was the whole being in church in person, which I 100% agree with.
Yeah.
And y'all know my situation, and we discussed it and everything. But man, when y'all were talking about that was hitting me pretty
It's like,
hard.
oh gosh, yeah. No. Listen, man, that's the reason we do this. These
Yeah.
discussions is to have those things that I think that's been one of the fun things over the last. I can't believe we've been doing this for 5.5 months.
Yep.
It's crazy, and I think that's something that everything we've done, whether we've been excited about it or not, has challenged us in one way or the other, which is really cool. Again, that was kind of the point of doing this whole year, is to kind of be challenged in different areas, and that's certainly, I have been challenged at many points. Okay, so we are talking about the 2 of the 3 blessings, or two of the 3 habits, 2 of the 5 habits that Michael Frost talks about. So the first 2 that we're going to talk about tonight are the ideas of bless and eating. And so just to kind of give a definition of blessing someone, that what he says in on page 30 gives a couple of different kind of analogies and descriptions, but in general, that if you kind of look at the Greek term, which I'm not going to pronounce because I'm not great at Greek, but that basically have the meaning of to speak well of or to praise someone, is the idea of blessing, to pronounce happy. And so in most kind of concepts, it is about offering prosperity or happiness on someone else. And then kind of another way to kind of describe it, or a definition of it, would be anything that relieves a burden of someone else in their life. That those are kind of 2 ways that we can bless. Then he kind of gets into 3 different ways we can bless. But this idea of blessing, what do you guys, when you think of blessing, I guess before you read this chapter, what was something that you kind of thought of? What was something that kind of stood out to you as an idea or a definition of bliss, and maybe how that's been changed a bit or tweaked or just reinforced through this chapter. We'll get to the three specifics here in a minute, but
I mean, for me, I think I've always considered it something more tangible, more monetary, something like that. That's where my mind goes when you think of blessing somebody. You think of
yeah,
whether that's time or money, but something like that.
that's good.
Yeah, really the same for me. It's, when your parents give you some cash, like, hey, I'm blessing you with this. My windfall
Right.
is your windfall. I've been blessed, so I'm gonna bless you with this. It's usually like a physical or tangible, monetary type situation, I guess. Or when you sneeze, I bless you.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really good. That's to wish well upon someone.
Yeah.
But I think even in churches, right, that's most often what it's kind of referencing or kind of uh, in context of is this idea of blessing, right? The financial blessing, typically. And so I think one of the things that he kind of wants to get is that he talks about three different types of three different types of blessing. I about gave away the first one. And the three are words of affirmation, acts of kindness, and gifts. So there's only one of those that is kind of money driven, maybe two if you consider acts of kindness. But words of affirmation has absolutely nothing to do with money. So, of these three, I guess to start off, which do you feel like is natural to you, and which is a challenge to you?
For me, boy, I'll start off with the one I think is most difficult, and it's not embarrassing, but selfish. Is gifts.
Yeah.
Because I like to kind of hoard stuff for myself, and I'd say giving gifts is not my best feature, as bad as that might sound. But words of affirmation, I feel like I do a pretty good job with that. I try to give praise when somebody does something really well, contributes to something, helps me out with something. I make sure that, my boss or his boss knows that, this person really kind of went above and beyond and helped me in a situation that I was in. And acts of kindness, I kind of took that as like acts of service too.
Yeah.
I don't mind getting my hands dirty, helping somebody out with something, helping somebody move, lift something, build something. I'm always kind of wanting to help somebody do something. But yeah, gifts is probably the one I struggle with the most.
Yeah. What about you, Brandon?
I think the one that I probably struggle with the most is probably words of affirmation, and only in the sense that I just don't think about doing it. When I think about ways that I've blessed people in these three contexts, I think that's the one that's probably done the least out of those. Acts of kindness, maybe that's probably one of my stronger ones. But yeah, I think words of affirmation is probably the weaker one.
Which doesn't surprise
You do good
me.
at gift giving?
You was that?
You do good at gift giving?
It's probably middle of the road.
Where's my gift?
I was waiting
It's
for it.
him.
I was waiting for it. It's in the mail. Don't worry. It'll be there in 5 to
the
6
mail.
years. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that words of affirmation is not your strongest suit, Brandon. In part because you're not a words person. Like we talked
Yeah,
last week
yeah.
that you're tremendously more introverted, and so especially compared to like me, Corey. I don't know where you fall on the extrovert introvert scale. I would guess a bit more extroverted than introverted. Maybe way more. I don't know where do you kind of fall on
Way
that
less
scale?
than you, more than Brandon.
Okay. Well, that's pretty easy. The reason Brandon and I
Or
were
the
real-
appropriate amount.
Yeah,
We're the two
fair.
extremes.
Yeah, there's a reason Brandon and I were best friends in college, is because I talked and he listened. Yeah, and so that didn't surprise me at all. I was actually gonna be surprised if you said words of affirmation was your strength, because and it doesn't mean that it's not. It just means that when you speak, that it has more power than I do, because I speak a lot. But shocker for me, words of affirmation is obviously a big one for me. I just love. I love to see people's reactions, right? I love to make people laugh. So I do a lot of things to do that. But I love to encourage others. That's something I think that's big for me, is just to encourage them. And so I think that comes natural. Acts of kindness, I would have said maybe until Corey said acts of service, and I was like, oh no, I do that mostly for like my family, like my wife or my kids or things like that. I should probably expand that out more, but I would say that that's probably my middle of the road. One is the acts of service, and
Do
in
you not
gifts,
think?
I am a horrible gift giver, horrible. Whether I don't think about it or in the actual giving of gifts, I just want you to tell me what you want and I will get it for you. That is the way that I do gifts. And to the point that my wife, even this week or last week, it was Teacher Appreciation Week. My wife's a teacher. Well, she goes, man, I sure hope my girls get their teachers something for Teacher Appreciation Week. Well, my twin-year-old daughters are in her class as fourth graders this year, and it was like Thursday, and I was like, oh crap, I gotta go get a gift for my wife, and so yeah, so clearly gifts is not, but I do like this. So my mom has always done what she calls just because I love you gifts, and so she will just randomly, whether it's to me or my wife, just bring flowers home to my wife, or just drop this off for the girls, and it's for my girls. It's just these random things of, I was at the store, I saw this, I thought you might like it. I'm actually better at that periodically than I am the other. But again, part of the challenge of this book is he doesn't want you to just think about the people you're close with, but the others outside of that. And that's probably where I'm convicted the most in these chapters is it's really easy for me to do these things for the people that I'm closest with, whether it's family or my closest friends. But outside of that, I don't think I don't interact a lot. So what do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like you're pretty good around people you don't know with words of affirmation or things like that, or do you feel like? And I guess the way to ask that would be your strength, whichever that is. Do you do that to and with people that you don't know very well, or is it primarily reserved for the people you do know?
I would say like acts of kindness is the one that I said was my strongest one. I would say when the moment presents itself, then yes, I'll jump in and I'll do that. But I think like you were saying, my circle's not big enough for that to really be an actual scenario enough. And when he was talking about how, I know we'll talk about the eat one later, but one of the things he challenges you with is, blessing somebody that's not in your church or a Christian that, like a lost person, something like that, or eating with somebody that's not in the church and not a Christian. Those things, I have to really think about who would that even be
Yeah,
in my life.
yeah,
Because I mean, work at a Christian company, go to church and have home group and kind of my circle. I
yeah,
don't have much outside of that. So that's been a conviction for me is I need to branch out that circle
yeah.
and give that opportunity to happen more frequently.
What about you, Corey?
Uh, so the question is, do I do a good job of words of affirmation for not just people in my circle, but strangers or people that I just met?
Yeah,
Um,
this is my
I
own little study. I'm very
yeah,
curious about this answer.
I I would think in a social situation, I would still be pretty good with words of affirmation. Um, let's say it's a giant circle of people and this one guy or girl is talking about how good they are at something. I'll ask them questions about that. And I'll say, that's amazing that you can dedicate something and be so good at that. I mean, that's so cool. I don't know. I feel like I actually do a pretty good job at that.
Yeah. No, so do I, which was interesting as I was asking the question and thinking about it. It was this idea to go, okay, if that's our strongest suit, I do that pretty well. Matter of fact, sometimes I think I'm even better at words of affirmation to people I don't know than to people I do know,
Yeah.
because it's just so natural as a part of my personality and who I am. And so I was curious if y'all kind of felt the same way. And
Yes.
then, so like on the extreme side of where I'm good, I think I do a good job with that. On the extreme side where I'm not good, the gifts, the random things, man, I never even think about it. I mean, it doesn't even hardly come to my brain. And so I think it's on the extremes, it shows in both sides. And then kind of in the middle, sometimes here or there. But
Yeah. So I actually thought the exact same thing too. why am I better at doing words of affirmations or gift giving or whatever to random people that I don't even know, rather than people in my own circle? And I think it's because whenever I think about my wife or my friends, like they know how I feel about them. Like
Right,
they
right.
know I love them, that I think highly of them. Anything that they do, I'm amazed by. So I fall into this place of complacency or something where it's like, well, I don't have to say it because you know how I feel. Where this
Right.
person, like, they don't know me at all. I want to make sure they understand. Like, I think what they're doing is fantastic and amazing, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, that's good. All right. So, what else stood out to you guys in this chapter? Was there anything else other than that? I mean, part of the goal of this book is to be extremely practical, and pretty direct. And so, there's not a lot of, I feel like, huge aha moments for me in reading it, but just some good practical things. But what stood out to you guys?
One of the things for me, just a good reminder, is that speaking about when you're blessing people that are lost or that are not Christians, when he says blessing others is a great way to prompt questions. Just
Mm,
having that mindset of, if you go to actively bless somebody that you know is not a Christian, go with the mindset of, this may prompt questions, so be prepared for that, and then have that try to prompt questions.
yeah, that's good.
I think one of the things that stuck out to me is that study that they did between blessers and converters, where the blessers, the
Mm.
people that went out and actually did stuff for this community that needed help building things, actually saw like a 50% or a 50 times increase in people actually converting to Christianity versus the people that went there. Not saying that the people that went there to be converters were doing anything wrong.
Right.
It's just, it seems more effective
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because
we
your acts and everything that you're doing through Christ kind of shines through that, and they're like, well, tell me more about this, you know?
right. I mean, we just read this in James, right? That in James 2, that he talks about, why would you say this? Or I guess maybe at the end of James 1, the hearers and doers of the word, you would say this, but yet the person is sitting there hungry and you say, God bless you, may God bless you, and just have all this praise about how good God is. And this person is sitting there hungry and they can't hear you because of their hunger. And while he's speaking to Christians, it goes tenfold to the outside world that we talk about on mission trips, that just to show up. The part of the goal is, when you go on a mission trip, at least when you go with me, is to realize that you're not the savior to the situation. You're not going to fix the situation. You're not going to suddenly everyone's going to have all the things that they need because you showed up. That's not how it's going to work. But what you can do is you can make a difference by coming and doing something practical, which then allows you to have a voice into their life, whether spiritually or just, their life, because you've done something practical first, whether that's build a home, whether that's give their kids a safe place and give them some food. It's just all those kind of things. So,
Good point.
I feel like that's even more so in today's environment, just because you use social media and all that kind of stuff. You're getting preached at
yeah,
from 1,000 different, whether that's political, whether that's sociological, or whatever that is, or with Christians just preaching their religious, opinions about things. So I feel like when you go out and out of your way and you do something, you try to bless somebody, whether that's act of kindness, a gift, words of affirmation, like that's the shocker, I think,
Yeah.
when people
yeah,
receive that.
that's a really good. Yeah, that's a really good thing to go, especially as the world gets more hostile and angry,
Mhm.
to just be kind and to be generous, and what is it? Words of affirmation, acts of kindness, and gifts giving. All of those are loving things, and to be loving in a world that is just filling up with hatred and anger
Mhm.
absolutely makes you stick out like a sore thumb and live, like I talked about, those questionable lives. So that's really good.
Yeah, it's like being the outlier of
Yeah.
the rest of the environment.
Right. I mean, Jesus says in Matthew that we're to be the salt of the world, right? And that's how we do it, to be different, to add this ingredient that preserves and adds flavor. So, yeah, that's really good. All right. Anything else from that chapter?
Did y'all bless 3 people this week?
I was gonna make it a challenge for next week.
Oh, okay, that might actually be
Okay,
better.
I'll take
Yeah,
it.
'Cause
yeah,
I tried to this week,
yeah.
but
Good,
I didn't
good.
hit
You got
3.
a head start, man. Listen,
Yeah.
you're that. I bet you were that kid that looked at the syllabus and started their homework early.
Sometimes. I guess it depends on the subject.
Yeah, not me. Never. No, didn't matter if it was the
No,
Bible
I'll vouch
or
for that.
math. Yeah, it didn't matter what it was. Never start early. Okay, so first habit is to bless. Second habit is my favorite, and I'll get into this in a minute, but is this idea of eat. And to eat, and it goes through this whole kind of theology of eating with one another and kind of the biblical practices of it. It gives examples of Jesus, and I don't want to go into it too much because I want you guys to be able to say things that stood out to you. But the power of sitting across from someone, sharing a meal or coffee or something, and the power of that. So I guess I kind of want to start off with this of what, where have you seen that in your own life? Where have you seen the power of a meal or the power of sitting across from someone at a table sharing a coffee be impactful in your own life? Or have you, I guess, if you haven't?
I'll start off. No, for me. So, go ahead, Brandon.
Can't steal his answer now.
I mean, I don't have like
Yeah.
a lot of specific situation I can think of. The only thing I can think of is that, you know, I'm in a Christian company now, but worked in the secular world. And when I would go out for, you know, lunch or something, or go get a drink with somebody from that office, it does allow a lot more just natural conversation that's not, you know, not business related or whatever. You can just, it kind of breaks down some of the professional walls, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's really good. You know, for me, obviously being a pastor, part of my job is to meet and engage with people a lot. And I have tried for the last 8 years at Waterbrook, I literally have budget money that is set aside as a part of my budget to just go to dinner or lunch or breakfast and coffees with people. And that's all that I use it for. And it will be hundreds of dollars a year, right? Which some people are like, well, that's a waste of money. I'm like, no, no, no. And this book is just reminding me of that. That is when I get breakthroughs with teenagers who are struggling with their parents or with life or their faith or whatever it is. It's when I am sitting across from a married couple or an engaged couple doing premarital counseling, and we're just really open and honest about life, and we're getting real and getting deep. That it's where I've been able to share heartbreak in my own life with people, that the meal for me has changed how I do ministry, to where I try, if I'm going to meet with someone, it is very rare that it is just a meeting in my office. I do not like meeting in my office. I would much rather just go sit at a restaurant, even if we don't eat, just go sit at a restaurant or go sit at a coffee shop and just sit and talk, because it has changed. It does everything this book talks about, which I want to ask you what kind of stood out in this chapter, but it absolutely tears down walls. So what kind of stood out to you guys? Is that something that, you know, okay, so y'all both, neither one have really kind of experienced it. Obviously, it's the same level that I have. But so then, I guess from y'all's perspective, how did this chapter kind of stand out to you?
This one was a hard one for me. I don't know. I think maybe this is like my Brandon side. I try to avoid like one-on-one lunches and dinners or
What?
coffees or like the plague. The idea, again, this is just me being selfish, but the idea of me sitting down with one other person to discuss like my feelings and thoughts, which sounds weird because it's us three, sometimes four, with random people that tune in to watch us
Right,
to do this,
right.
but I don't know. There's just something so personal about being face to face with somebody, and I don't know. This one's a hard one for me.
Oh, this is interesting. Okay, no, this is really good. I didn't think we would get much discussion on this. I'm really happy that you're awkward, because that makes me, it's going to be a good conversation. All right, Brandon,
I'm
I can
awkward.
only imagine how this makes you feel, Brandon.
Yeah, same. For one, small talk and chit chat is something I, like you said, avoid like the plague.
Yeah,
I don't like it. If we have a topic that we're specifically
yeah,
discussing, no problem. But just like getting together and chit chatting or small talk, man,
yeah,
I am no good at it at all.
yeah,
I will say I agree with the overall um, subject of like the eating together does make it easier. So if
yeah,
I were to just go one on one and go just sit with somebody wherever and just talk. That would be much more uncomfortable than going and having a lunch. That does make it a little bit more comfortable. I think when I was thinking about it, it's like a musician when they're just up there singing without their guitar. It's like you don't know what to do with your hands.
Yeah,
So at
yeah,
least when you're eating, you can break that silence. You can take a bite, whatever. Like there's things that you can do that kind of break that awkwardness, but
yeah.
still never comfortable on the
Yeah.
one-on-one.
That's good. And I've been to some really awkward lunches, especially with teenagers. Of like I took a guy out. I don't know, back in August, September. Is about to graduate high school, and he just moved into town and just needed somebody to go to lunch with him. And so I invited him to lunch, and so we went out to lunch, and it was like I was pulling teeth trying to get this kid to come out of his shell, and I'm doing everything that they would teach you in a book. I'm asking it. So like when I go do it, there's one or two guys that I meet with where we both share about our lives, right? But for the most part, I'm trying to get to know you. So I'm asking stories for your life. Tell me how you got to where you are. Tell me how you. Tell me what makes you happy. What's the best time in your life? What's the worst time? I'm just coming up with questions to try and get something in their story that allows me to connect with them, and then I want to kind of engage in that. Something that makes their eyes light up, and then I want to engage in that because that's how I get to know them, right? Because ultimately, people don't mind talking about themselves typically, and so it's good. It can be hard if the other person is like gives you answers, or if lunch takes a long time to get there. I try not to go to places where I know I'm going to be there for an hour waiting on food. I like to just unless it's a person I know we're going to spend an hour talking, and it's just shooting the breeze back and forth. But yeah, I've definitely been in those. But I think for me it's just asking about them. You know, what's your story, what's your, and so it's easier with adults because it's a longer story. Okay, well, tell me, you know, where were you at in high school? How'd you end up going to the college you did? Okay, well, how'd you get into this career? Were you always interested in this? Were you not? I mean, so many questions that just get them talking, and then you show that engagement and interest into what they're talking about. And it doesn't matter what they're talking about. For me, I'm interested because it's them, it's their story, and I'm a story person. I'm a people person, and so I don't end up doing a ton of talking, Brandon. I just ask questions that makes them talk, so it's way less uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny because I could see if I took Brandon for a little coffee time to chat with the pastor, Pastor John, that it would be like, I mean, it wouldn't be awkward because you and I know each other for 20
Right.
plus years. But if it was a different pastor, it would be like, Brandon would be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So what, okay, so why do you think you don't do it more? Is it solely the awkwardness, or is it the busyness? Is it that you don't want to get rejected? You just want to avoid the situation completely? Like what, why don't you eat with people more? What's going to be the biggest thing you have to overcome this next week when I challenge you to do this?
You want me to go first, Brandon?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Um, I don't think it's that I'm too busy. I can find time. I feel like my job has allowed me to be pretty flexible as to when or how long I might take a lunch, as long as as long as I'm getting work done. Now that I'm fully remote, I haven't met a single person that I work with, except over the internet. So finding somebody that I don't know to go have lunch with, like, how do I do that now? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. And I was gonna ask this question during the, like, what do I do? I don't know if I feel comfortable enough going up to a random person asking, would you like to get a bite to eat sometime?
I got an
Um,
answer for you, but you're immediately going to go, oh,
Probably not gonna
thanks the
like
Lord.
it.
Legitimately, for you, because your kids aren't old enough to be in activities yet. So like for me, obviously we talked about this last week, right? I'm surrounded by Christians. I work at a church. I have a life group, like Brandon said. I'm surrounded by Christians. Where do I engage with people outside of the church? Is through my kids' activities, through meeting other dads, through school, or through sports, or whatever it is, right? So your kids aren't there yet. So what would you do? I would encourage you to go to church in person, and that through that you're going to end up engaging with people that have kids in your life stage, and that drop them off at the preschool at the same time, and that's going to naturally, yes, those are Christians, those are people, he talks about doing three people every week for these habits, two in the church, one outside the church. Start simple, do one. And especially for you, Corey, because and I've been there, your life is surrounded by people that you're really close with and that you don't have to spend that kind of time with. But I think for you, man, getting back into that rhythm of going to church physically in person is going to engage you in a whole swarm of new people to kind of start to build relationships with. So that'd be my answer.
Okay.
Don't go pick up randos down the street.
I'm gonna put out a Craigslist ad.
Yeah, that's how you end up
Guy
on
looking for a
Dateline.
friend.
Yeah, that's how you end up on Dateline. One way, either dead or on the Catching a Predator. So please don't do that.
Chris Hansen, what are you doing here?
Yeah. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, the same as Corey in the sense that it was tough trying to think of, okay, who would that actually be? Because, outside of, work and church, there's not a whole lot of people that I interact with, which probably is to a fault. But yeah, I guess that's part of that introvert side of me as well. I'm not going out and seeking new friendships.
Can Brandon and I tag team this and he invites somebody that he works with and I go with them?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Yes.
I'd be down for that.
So we watched a video as a part of staff meeting the other day, and it was talking about sharing, engaging with people who don't have the same faith background and stuff, and sharing your faith and that kind of stuff. But part of what it said was invite them into your circles with your people. And so it would be exactly that, right? That the two of y'all are going to go out to lunch, but you're going to invite a third person to come join you. So it makes it less awkward for that person. And then it gives them a view into the relationship that y'all have, which is going to be questionable to them because they're going to be like, well, y'all seem really cool with you. Like, that's not what I expected a Christian to be like. Or if they are a believer, be like, oh, this is really, this guy's really down to earth kind of thing. So, yes, I absolutely can tell you that you can not cheat. You can piggyback off of each other, especially because it's uncomfortable. And I really need you to not go to some rando this week. I feel like you're more likely to do that
Knocking on
than
doors.
to, yeah, I really am. Yeah, I really am. So, okay, what else stood out? And then we'll talk about really practical things we're going to do this next week. And I'm going to write them down so we don't forget. And so as y'all look, I would say for me, some of it for me is I think I get to a point where I feel like I'm too busy to eat with other people or to go to coffee because it takes time away from all the work things I have to do or the projects at home, or it takes time away from the family and stuff like that. And so I've got to do better of going, no, I need to prioritize this because number one, that's how I'm fed as a person. I feed off of those relationships and that energy. And when I don't do that, when I sit at a desk in my office and I don't talk to people or I just talk to the office staff, that is not where I find my enthusiasm and my growing passion for the Lord. It's when I'm out, even if it's Christian people just talking about their life and things like that. So that's probably my thing is I feel like I'm getting to a point where I feel like I'm too busy to make time for it at times.
So I guess maybe I get in my head too much about doing stuff like my objective doesn't have to be I invite this person to go have lunch with me and I need you to tell me why you're having marital problems and I'm gonna fix them for you.
Please
or
don't.
let me
Yeah, please don't. Gosh, we need to start back
let
at square one.
me break it down for you.
Yeah.
Or this guy's I don't know, let me make sure I can spoon feed him the Bible in
Right.
45 minutes to an hour. Like I guess I can look at it as like I could just go in and have a normal conversation with this person.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about you, and I'll tell you a little bit about we don't have to discuss anything outside of sports or video games or books or work or anything. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess maybe I just get in my head too much.
Yeah, so we did a campaign a couple of years ago. It was called Who's Your One, and big campaign. A lot of churches do it, but it's this idea of, and then we had a guy, Greg Kokel, come in and kind of give a talk that next year, and his big kind of philosophy was to put a pebble in that your goal isn't to share the gospel every time or have a conversion or to whatever. That, as we talked about last week, that there are people that are evangelists that comes very natural to them. That's not me. So the goal isn't to go through the whole A to Z of the gospel every time you meet with someone, but rather get to know them, right? Put a pebble in their shoe. And maybe that's asking them a spiritual question. Maybe it takes 3 to 4 meetings to get to a point of that. Like you have to build trust, right? That when I go meet with a student, if I'm mentoring a student, I'm not immediately going to come in and go, hey, tell me your deepest, darkest sins. Like, tell me, are you struggling with pornography? Are you having sex with somebody right now? Like, are you drinking? Like, what are you doing right now? I'm not going to start with that. If I don't know this kid, I'm just going to go, tell me about your life. Like, tell me about who you are, what makes you you, what makes you just love life, what makes you frustrated and angry. As maybe that's sports. Like, I'm not taking it serious, and the idea is that it builds trust between the two people, and it just it's natural, right? That I don't share everything. I'm more of an open person. I do share a lot of stuff, but most people don't want to hear the things I share like right away. They want to know that I'm a normal person. So yeah, I think way simpler, man. I think we make it to. I think that's something that is a downside of growing up in church, especially when we all did. Is this idea that we have to evangelize constantly, and if we don't, then we're not being a good Christian. So we just run away from all of it. When man, sometimes it's just sharing a meal and just being loving and kind to somebody. In 6 months, if you're still having coffee or lunch with that person once a month, once every other month, they're gonna be like, man, my marriage is struggling, or my kid just, we just found out that they're getting bullied at school or something, and then you can kind of walk them through that and what your faith, why you respond the way you do in those situations. I just think has to be a relationship, has to be a relationship there to have
Mhm.
that. So,
Okay.
and
So
relationships take time.
I found out I do have somebody that I work with that is actually in the Dallas area. I don't know what part of Dallas,
Not
so
even.
maybe I
Oh
could.
my gosh.
Well, so
Is
we're
it Dallas?
all over the world. And I was helping him out with some computer problems, and turns out we actually both used to work for Microsoft. I missed him by a few years, but we both used to work at Microsoft, but now we work for another company several years later, and so
That's
we've
cool.
been, every now and then we might reach out to each other, but maybe I'll reach out to him and see if he wants to get lunch this week. I don't know what part of Dallas he lives
Yeah,
in, so
yeah. Well,
but
even if you just say, "Hey, I want to get lunch sometime. Where are you at?" And then the next time you're going that direction, that's something I try and do. Is if I am going into, we live like 45 minutes from downtown Dallas, right? So if I'm going into I've got friends on the other side, kind of South Dallas. If I'm going that direction, then I'll drive an extra 20 minutes to go have lunch with them.
mhm.
Because I'm not over there very often. It's like once or twice a year that I'm over there where it's convenient, but I will take out time of my day to go do that. And I've found that that makes a huge difference in somebody because they're like, you drove out here? Well, yeah. And I was already kind of in the area, but I still made time for that person. That says so much to people that when you spend time, that we all say that we're super busy, when we spend time with people intentionally, I think just goes such a long way in telling them that we care about them, and we care because God loves them. So, yeah, I think it's good.
Cool.
Corey, I'll piggyback on that one.
Okay, there we go. We
Don't go
got two
together.
right there.
Might as well drive over to me and come have lunch with me. Y'all don't go to my church. Okay. Anything else stand out to you guys on that?
Oh, one thing.
Yep.
Maybe y'all knew this. When he was 3 ways the New Testament completes that sentence. The Son of Man came, and the Son of Man came eating and drinking.
Uh
Like
huh.
I never even thought something like that would
Uh huh.
exist.
Well,
I thought that was pretty interesting, so I had to look that one up.
if you think about, I actually wrote this down of some of your favorite stories of Jesus. a lot of them have to do with food, right? The feeding of the
Mm-hmm.
4,000, the feeding of the 5,000. One of my favorites is when Jesus restores Peter post resurrection. And where do they do it? They do it around a fire after they caught fish eating breakfast. Like Jesus and the tax collector, Jesus and Nicodemus. Like there's so many times Jesus sat with people, and that was kind of the point of this chapter, is that that's Jesus's model. It's the model of the New Testament church. It's the model of Christ, that just the meal was so important to break down walls and barriers, that it's really, really important and good. So
Yeah. I those reoccurring themes I always find super interesting in the Bible.
yeah.
And it makes you think, like, I'm sure y'all have heard the term "food nourishes the soul." Like, the more I read stuff, like I don't think it's the food that nourishes your soul. It's the
No.
community that's around
Yeah.
the food.
Yeah.
You know, it's the environment, it's the experiences that you share while you're eating.
Yep.
That's what nourishes
Mhm.
the soul. Because, like, you could eat a meal by yourself and you're like, yeah, this is
Right.
a good meal,
Yeah,
but
it's
like,
good.
it's not nourishing my soul. What are
Right.
you talking
Right.
about?
No, 100%. And you think about it, right? Why do most churches who have small groups for adults don't put them on Sunday mornings in classes? They do them when? During the week in homes. And the reason is it is exponentially more effective, because the whatever, not officialness, but the like seriousness of it just drops in a home as you share a meal. And I don't want, like, we always, even though like our group meets at church, just for babysitting kind of stuff, the ease of it and space wise, we always bring a meal and we just sit around a big table or two tables and we just sit and talk while we eat our dinner. Like, it's just, that's how we do it. And yeah, you're right. I just think it's, sometimes we forget how important it is. And I know because it's a huge part of my job, but it's interesting to hear that that's not something that's normal to you guys, which is really encouraging to keep pushing me to do it with more people.
Technology, man. We just want to sit
Technology.
behind a computer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the number of times I even just go sit and I grab lunch and I'll just sit in my truck and eat while I watch my
Yeah.
phone. Like, it's, it is what it is. There's just times,
Uh,
there's times I need that, but I usually
Yeah.
have lunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, anything else stick out, Brandon? Do you have anything else?
No, I don't think anything else said.
Cool. So, big challenge for the week. All right. To bless and to eat. Okay. So, one person to bless. One person to eat with this week. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I will tell you now, and I'm going to write mine down. I don't have a pen. And oh yeah, I do it right on. So mine is going to be this new guy from church, who's a younger adult. He's married and I don't know. He got a couple of kids. That's all I know. All right. So I'm going to at least reach out to him and see if he is available this week for lunch. Okay. Because I just desperately want to build a relationship with this guy. I just feel like I'm drawn to him. So
Nice.
what about you guys?
Either Brandon sets up a play date for us, or or I'll reach out to the guy I know that I work with that's also in the Dallas area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm running Brandon and Corey double date.
You gotta ease into it, you know.
Okay. What about bless? What are you gonna do? And it doesn't have to be so. It doesn't. So again, start simple, right? So let's go. We've got the 3 different kinds of things to do, and so what do you want to do? And if it's all the church people, that's fine this week. Like, we're just trying to move the ball forward, right? We don't have to complete everything perfectly in the first week. But
Yeah.
what stands out to you?
I think I do the words of affirmation and the works already pretty well, so
Mhm.
maybe I'll try the gift thing. And I don't know what that even looks like. Do I buy a gift for somebody that I work with or somebody that I know? And then what does that gift even look like?
Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta start thinking.
Would the rule be? No, I don't want to make that rule. I would say would the rule be you can't do it to your spouse. But I
Oh,
don't
that's
like, I
fine,
don't want to
yeah.
make. No, but I don't really want to make that rule because one of the best things I ever heard at a conference, this big national youth pastor conference, we all flew to St. Louis to go there, and they literally got up on stage and said, like right at the very beginning, they were like, "Listen, if your marriage is struggling right now, leave this conference right now. Go call your wife. Go back to the hotel room with your wife and talk it out. Like this is, we do not want you here if you are struggling in your marriage." And it was so encouraging and challenging to go, okay, take care of what's most important first, and then you can take care of the other stuff. So if you want to do something for your spouse, if it's been a hard week or whatever, I'm good with that, right? Surprise them with dinner from their favorite restaurant, whatever, flowers, however your spouse enjoys. So I'm good with that. If it's a person, again, the random person from work, you could send them like a Home Depot gift card or something, but you don't know these people very well. So
Yeah, I don't know what I don't even know.
yeah, I think find someone that's not your strength. So find someone that you want to
Yeah.
just do that for, and I don't care who. All right, Brandon.
I mean, yeah, the words of affirmation is the weakest one I think for me. So I think I don't know what that looks like exactly in the week or like a specific person, but I think my goal is to be more conscious of looking for those opportunities to do that. I think is what I'll be focusing on.
Okay. How many people do you want to do it to this week?
I don't know, at least one. Just start it off easy.
1 plus. Okay, so I'm gonna also do words of affirmation, but I'm gonna mix it up because it obviously I want to write 3 letters to people.
That's nice.
That's something that I don't do well that I think actually means more than anything I'm gonna say. I'm gonna write 3 notes to workers within my church, within our ministries, just as encouragement, and send them notes this week.
That's nice.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Such a good idea.
Do calligraphy. You got good handwriting, right?
Not right now. Look at this. It's like scribble.
Oh,
I can't.
boy.
I'm like writing underneath my microphone. It's awful. Yeah. Sometimes I write like a girl nice, and then other times I write like a 4-year-old boy. So it kind of depends. All right. Well, that works good. All right. Anything else for the book? So next week our habits are listen and learn. Oh man. I feel like I'm
I know.
gonna.
I like this book so far,
have
by
some
the way.
conviction.
Very easy read.
I know that's what yeah, that's what it's on Brandon. Like it's been really super practical.
It's kind of
which has
nice,
been good.
just because the last 4 books have been like very
Depth.
thought-provoking and
Yes.
deep. And
Right.
I mean, these are obviously. I
Yeah.
think this one's very thought-provoking, but it's not like I need to, really digest what I just read for
Right.
like the next 3
Yeah.
days.
Right. It's simple as it does it.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. Well, and then next month's book will be convicting, so get ready.
Oh boy.
All right, cool. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate it. Chapters, was that 3, 4, 5, and 6 next week? All right. All right, so there we go. Week 2 of this book, Surprise the World. Really, really good. Really, really good on just kind of some good conversations and some really good opportunities to make a difference in people's life and surprise them with in a life that is highly questionable. So I really, really am enjoying this. But all right, with that, we'll be back next week on YouTube and Twitch as a part of our book club. Until then, adios. All right. YouTube is